What's up, everybody? We're going to do a review NV400 Commander. This is by One Leaf. Now, previous video, I mentioned we're going to do a review. One Leaf sent me this for a copy to review, and yeah, we're going to get into this. So it's going to be 6 parts. First part is going to go over the tech, digital scopes versus optical, kind of dispel some of the myths there. And then we're going to get into the menu system. There's like 35 different menu items. 8 of them are really important. We're going to go over the most important ones. And when you see this, the light will kick on, like, oh, this is what I can do, or this would be great for that kind of stuff. Second part is we're going to do some video comparisons. We're going to look at the PARD, physical attributes, the video, the zoom, compare it against this digital scope, see, how much things have advanced. And then finally, we're going to get out to the range. We're going to go 27 yards indoors, low light, no IR, see how it focuses, see what it looks like, the video looks like at 52 power. And then next, we're going to go out to the 100 to 300 yard range. There's going to be some things we're going to test out there. Does it hold at 0? How's the menu items work real world? Does it have any software glitches? How long does the battery last? All that kind of stuff. Does it have enough elevation to get you out to 300, switching back and forth? Look, just trying to beat on it to see if we can get it to break. Why would you want to go to a digital scope? There's plenty of really good optical scopes out there. And there's also some myths about digital scopes that might not be 100% true of some of the things you've heard, or maybe it's a little bit outdated information. All right. So why? Digital scopes are really versatile, especially the day and the night versions, because essentially you can have one scope on your rifle and have it tuned just to do everything. Essentially, if you have a night vision system, you might have to swap out your optical scope. And that with digital scopes, you have different reticles you can adjust. You can to your liking. You're able to be able to set up different profiles, which we'll go over. Essentially, that's setting a rifle scope up for bullet drop at different yardages instead of having to manually crank your turrets or anything like that. You might have different guns you can use it on. So if you got a really solid mounting system on 2 rifles, you can use your digital scope on both rifles. Just pop it off one, pop it on another, and select the profile. So the night vision thing is awesome. You also have low light capabilities. Even some of the best optical scopes out there, compared to a night vision scope or a day and night vision scope, they have some amplification that you just can't get with regular optics. So some of the misconceptions about digital camera gear, digital scopes, is the fact that the optical stuff is more reliable. Now, in some instances it is, but if you look at photography, wildlife photography up north, it could be -40 below. Some people had issues with camera, the mirrors breaking, some of the film breaking because it was fragile and it was so cold. There's other things where, if you're moving an optical scope and it's really cold and you're moving a big zoom, how's that work? Those mechanical pieces versus electronic. So there's some of the misnomers there, or myths that, your optical scope will be better in all conditions, and that's not necessarily the case. All right, guys, there are 35 menu options. I'm going to give you the top 8. First off, reticle type. You can select like MRAD, MOA. There's like 7 different reticle options. That's, it's pretty standard there. But for digital scope, color. This is one of those that you're going to actually jump into more often than not, because if you're shooting white targets, obviously the white's going to be very bad. And then if you select the black, guess what? When it becomes night, you're going to have some problems seeing the reticle. So I have a tendency to choose the red or the green option, just a good all-arounder, so you don't have to go dig in this. One shot zero. This is where the magic really happens for these digital scopes. You can kind of move around the cursor. So you take a shot, and let's say your white cursor is where you're aiming, and then you move the red reticle to where the shot landed. And essentially you save it off, and that's your new 0. It's that easy. So you can do a 50, 100 yard, and then when you save, you'll see down below there's 6 options. These are considered profiles in a lot of digital scopes. 1 through 6, we'll select 1, and there you have it. It's kind of like the new, I guess, the new 0 for 1. It saves successfully, and then it comes back. Now, the positions, essentially those are your profiles. Just take note of that. You can select up to 6 different ones. So you can have an AR-15, you could have different zeros for your air rifle, 1 at 50, 1 at 100, 1 at 150, and just select it to where, you know, if your yardage, your rangefinder tells you it's 150, go down to, I don't know, profile 3 and select it, and it's just going to readjust. You notice your X and Y coordinates on that screen have changed. That's basically your new 0. Photo resolution, movie video mode, 4K 30 is kind of the standard. It does have 4K 120 frames a second. Do not use that at night because it's just too much data to be grabbing with high ISO. Your frames per second, your shutter speed has to be too high. So don't worry about that. I would go with probably 4K 30, 2K 30. Photo resolution, bump that up. And then we come down to first focal plane, second focal plane. This is pretty cool. It's one of those that you can kind of, I guess, not have to adjust for your reticle if you're going to use one or the other. There's, I guess, pros and cons to both, and that's the nice thing. Over a regular scope, you generally have traditional scope. You have either a first focal plane or second focal plane, but not both. So essentially, kind of select whatever you want. The next one you're going to use, for the most part, is day, night, and then the starry. So this is very important. Your day obviously isn't going to be in the day. That starry is when it's almost dark. It lights up. You don't need the IR torch, and it makes everything kind of look like day. It is pretty impressive what it's able to do, what it's able to pick up without any kind of artificial lighting, and that it's just using the ambient light. And then night is a real heavy amplification, high ISO, kind of a black and white look to get you, when it's pitch black. Because Tennessee is, if you're out hunting, out in the sticks, there's very little ambient light or pollution, light pollution or any of that kind of stuff. So just know, if you go to the other ones, for the most part, day works pretty good. Even when it's dusk, day works pretty good. Picture in a picture, that can be kind of cool. Now this is a 52 times zoom scope, but if you really, want to keep it at, let's say 12 power, kind of keep things kind of nice and be able to zoom in on it and get a little thing, I kind of would turn picture in a picture on. That would give you some options there. And the red dot option. There is a red dot you can turn on, and let me see, there it is up here. Red dot. There you have it. You turn it on, and that's pretty cool. You can kind of see over here on the wall, right there. That works. And then turn it off, kind of save on that. So there you have it. There's a lot of other options in here that, you can do brightness, contrast, and metering and that stuff, but this is a little bit more detailed, and you kind of got to know what you're doing, and it's not the big stuff you have to worry about. So very cool, a lot of options in the scope to change, and the menu system is probably going to mention many times, probably the best menu system I've been in on any digital scope so far. I really like it. It's very simple. It is a little bit long-winded, but once you get in, it's essentially you hold down one button and you can get to everything, and then you have a little turret to get to whatever you want to go. We're going to do a comparison against the Pard and the NV Commander 400. I set up a tripod in my house because things get kind of shaky. It's probably not a great idea to be pointing a gun out the window. Anyway, we're going to compare the video. We look at the Pard. It's 1080p. It's fairly solid, and it's got up to 16 power or 13.5 power scope. And it's just it's just basically 2 modes. You're able to do one and the other. It kind of just punches in. So it's not you're able to adjust going from 1 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 12. It's literally just one or the other. Now, if we look at the 4K footage from the NV400 Commander, it's significantly more detailed, along with the ability to punch in at different estimates. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4 power. When we start getting up to the 20 plus power, you notice it gets really grainy. But the benefit is, if you're at 52 power, you literally can see little needles off a pine cone or anything, you could probably shoot it off if your rifle was accurate enough. So during the day, I definitely give the win to the NV400 as far as the quality, the image, the resolution, and all that, and the noise. Just the noise, it just seems to have less noise than the PARD. Of course, I would expect this being a newer kind of scope with better sensors and all that kind of stuff.
All right, we're going to talk about the three modes. There's day, starry, and night vision. They all work fairly good in, regular terms. This is day vision at night with no IR amplification and does a pretty good job. It's well above a true optical scope. There's just no way you're going to be able to see anything in these little dark shrubs that I'm putting the scope in. And you can see the amplification is huge. And when we move over to the starry, this is kind of a purple thermal look that amplifies the light even more. It kind of removes a little bit more of the colors and ups the contrast. And I'm going to show you that with a torch, IR torch, and things light up fairly well. And then we're going to go to the night vision. That's totally black and white, and that works extremely well. We'll go without the torch than with the torch. But you can see this would be easily, coyote hunting at 100, 200 yards with the IR torch on, no problem.
Let's talk about range time. Now, I set out to the 100 to 300, and it was absolutely a miserable day. 20, 30 mile an hour winds. So ultimate accuracy, even on a 22, with that kind of wind, you're not going to do so well. So my main objective for this visit to see some of the big things. Does it hold zero? Does it hold zero if you power it off? Does it hold to zero if you switch between different profiles? Does it hold zero if you're turning the scope into sleep mode and all that kind of stuff? What does the video look like in the day at, say, 4 power versus 52 power? What does that look downrange? So initially we're looking at the video. It looks actually pretty good. It's 4 power. You can see the 100, 200, 300. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. But then when we zoom in, we're going to go to 52 power. Notice this, it's broad daylight. We do have some noise and some deterioration of the image quality, but it's still very accurate. Now, I know where the bullet was traveling. I could easily hit clay pigeons at about 115 yards. You'll see some of these shots. So that was awesome. And then I would switch out to 330 yards. The rangefinder was spot on, which is awesome. And you'll see some of this video here where it looks like it probably like 10 or 20 power. But as you kind of zoom out and you kind of get a little bit better estimate of how far this actually is, and then what the 52 power actually looks like way zoomed in, and it's pretty nice. The additional benefit of this is, yes, this scope can actually shoot at pretty decent power, meaning magnification at 330 yards, which for air guns is unbelievable. This is one of the things with my 10 to 40 power that I have to back out the power to get all the scope, everything, and I had to play around with almost like a cold shot to get it to shoot that far. This handles it pretty well. A regular 22, we're able to get out there with almost 52 power and be able to see that. So some of the shots you can see, obviously the image quality, I wouldn't be too fooled by this because remember guys, this is 330 yards. We're looking at tons of atmospheric conditions in addition to a lot of wind. So as we hit the 27-yard range, this is one of those situations, it's very dark in this range. There's very little lights down at the 27. My goal was to actually kind of shoot some groups, more details. So essentially, I used the 100 and 300 yard. You could see those two sides off to the left, the highs and the lows. Again, I had probably a couple hours. The scope banged around my car a little bit, and then I shot the two groups to the left, switching the profiles to see if it was holding and it would group. And then I kind of went to the more expensive ammo, and I wanted to kind of see, accuracy wise, if I could shoot this with some halfway decent ammo and essentially what this looks like in low light at 52 power. And if I could start drilling almost like a one hole scenario at 27 yards. And for the most part, the scope performed really, really well. It's heads above my PARD as far as the magnification. I can get really far in there, and the quality of the video is obviously in low light seems a little bit better as well. All right, guys, let me give you an overview or summary, things I like, dislike about this scope, because yeah, it's pretty good. First thing is the video quality. Video quality is pretty good, even at 52 power. Yes, it's grainy, but there's just no other scope out there giving me that kind of flexibility to be able to kind of zoom in. And so you got to give hats off. They're at least trying to get people as much zoom capability as possible out of the sensor and out of the scope. Battery life is pretty good, like 8 to 10 hours. There's a sleep mode, like an instantaneous sleep wake up mode, which works great because there's some downsides to like a full reboot, but it's much needed. I didn't see myself using this through multiple tests in here at the range, multiple places. It really didn't even need a recharge. Where I can't say that for this part. This part was probably, 2-3 hours max that I could use it. This has at least gone double or triple that. The other thing I like about this scope setup is it has everything with it. And I would suggest if you're gonna buy it with the full setup, because you get the rangefinder, there's a laser in here, you get the batteries, you get the sunshade, you get the cup, the Picatinny like setup, the scope rings, you get power cables like the video out and the charging cable, you get a torch, and 64 or 128 gig small SD card in this. So you get pretty much everything you need right out of the box. It's not like you're, looking around for things and it gets frustrating, like, oh, now I need batteries. And by the way, it comes with all the batteries you need. So you pretty much get this, put it together. You might have to charge it and you're pretty much good to go. Menu system is the other thing I really like. Now this has the best menu system out of any of the expensive scopes I've used. I've used the Pulsar, like $1,500, $2,000 scope menu system. I don't care for those as much. The Pard is probably my second favorite ATN. So this literally is, you just scroll, you click it, a menu system comes on, you scroll down and you click it and you select it. It's that simple. Now, if you want to zoom in to 52 power, when you're out of the menu system, you just kind of scroll in and out and it just kind of, it does your pitch in, your zoom in digitally. It works pretty doggone good. Software bugs and stability. This, I hadn't had it freeze up at all. And I kind of went out on the net and looked around and there's maybe a couple people that were having some small glitches early on. I haven't noticed any kind of software glitches with that. I can definitely say, my Pulsar that I had to reset that. The ATN scopes, I've had those reset a ton on me where I've lost all my settings, like all day settings and that, but this has been very stable. And that's the thing. If you want a scope that you don't want to have to mess with, so far, this has probably been the most stable scope I've played with. All right, what are the negative things? It's heavy. This is a heavy scope. When you have this, it's like 2, 3, maybe 4 times heavier than my Pard. It really does weigh things down. The second part that I don't care for is you have to have the sunshade on most of the time. So during day or kind of dark times, you want this on because it will definitely increase your image quality and contrast and get rid of flares and that. But during like nighttime, you want this all the way open to get as much light in the system. So just don't make that mistake. It's literally this sensor is very sensitive to light, and that's what happens. That being said, it's kind of creaky, and the zoom, or I said the focus system, it's kind of stiff. It seems to be working out a little bit, but as you guys can hear, it's one of those that if you have it in front of you, you're kind of wrenching on your scope, and it kind of pulls things off. It's a little bit tough. Hopefully it's going to lighten up. The total cold restart reboot time is about 22 seconds. So if you have to reboot your system, or if you want to save energy and you have to shut it down, you're gonna have to wait 22 seconds. It goes through a bunch of different gyrations and software loading up. Just know that that's a little bit disconcerting at sometimes. The menu system and the reset is probably the only thing that kind of gets me a little bit, is if you're zoomed in and you select a new menu item, like your reticle, or you want to change that color, if you select it, it pulls your zoom all the way out. And I think softwares do this just to kind of reset all the attributes in there to make sure you're solid, but it's kind of annoying. Phone application. So I couldn't find a phone and Bluetooth connectivity to this scope. I went out on the iOS and my iPhone, looked for OneLeaf, couldn't find anything. I looked through the menu, a Bluetooth connection, couldn't see anything. So the rumors are that they possibly could have some software coming up, because that's the next item on the list that I wish they had. It's the pyramid, the pinnacle of rifle scopes is ballistic calculations automatically. So we know that we have a rangefinder and we know that we have the reticle, right? So the way the ballistic calculator will work is if you're shooting at 100 yards, the reticle automatically adjusts to, your bullet drop. And then if you go 300, it'll automatically kind of go down or up and figure that out for you. So just to know, this is one of those things. If they get this to work, it will be awesome, awesome, awesome. Right now, I've seen some other manufacturers do the ballistic calculators. They haven't worked for me. Like literally, I've called out a couple of YouTubers that had reviews saying how great it was. I'm like, mine wouldn't work. There was no reply. I've called the actual scope manufacturer, said, hey, how's this work? This is not working. No reply. So just know it's a very difficult problem to solve, but once they do it, that will be the coup de grace. If they can do it with this scope, that would be awesome. And I think it'd be the go-to. So overall, what are my kind of takeaways? I think this is probably one of the better digital scopes out there, especially for the price. I like my Pard. That was like $1,000. There's some other scopes out there, the Pulsars, that are more expensive, but I don't think you're getting a whole lot more for those. And it just seems like the 52 power recording really helps out with air gunning, be able to actually see what we're shooting at. And that might not be the best video quality, but at least it gets you somewhat close in the scope without having to do a lot of digital manipulation on my part. And actually just shooting it and seeing what you're aiming at and shooting that. So there you guys have it. I think it's a fairly solid buy from what I see out there for digital scopes. If you guys got comments, questions, write that down below, and I'll see you next week.